Hi, everybody. This is Professor Gaffney, and welcome to sort of week 2.5, week 3-ish. I wanted to talk to you today about the research project, especially that's coming up. Believe it or not, our class will be done in 2 weeks. We finished with the research paper and the final exam 2 weeks from today. So I wanted to give you as many resources as possible to get you through that research project. Today's video is going to be quite a bit longer than usual because I want to make sure that you've got some clarity and understanding of the assignments to come, and particularly I wanted to talk to you about the argument side of the argumentative research paper that we're going to be doing. So first things first, let's start with this idea of argument. You may have done an argument paper before, but if you haven't, you probably are very familiar with the concepts already. When we're talking about argument for an essay, we're not talking about yelling or name calling or even trying to convince people that we are correct. The purpose of an argument paper in a class like ours and other classes you may be taking is the idea of supporting your main idea, supporting your thesis, presenting your thesis in such a way that your readers will understand the position you have and, more importantly, why you have that position. And so, for example, I've used in the past the example of maybe talking to friends about a movie you've seen or a concert you've gone to, and maybe they don't agree with you. Maybe you want them to see why the movie you just saw was so great when they thought it was terrible. And so you present your ideas. Look, here's what I thought. I thought the movie was great. I thought the director did an amazing job with the actors, that their characters were really believable, that the lighting and sound really enhanced the mood of the film, the pacing was well done, etc. So all those are reasons that you have to support the idea that what you saw was a great movie. And you present them in your paper as neutrally as possible. So what we're going to do is we're really going to need to focus on having a tone that is appropriate to academic argument. And the tone that you're really looking for is something as neutral and professional as you can get. We are not trying to convince anyone that our position is the best one, the right one, or even the only one. All we're trying to do is to convince our readers that the reasons we have are logical and that they're well thought out, that we have good reasons for our reasons, in short. And so one of the things that we need to keep in mind are 3 terms related to the rhetorical situation. And if you remember our rhetorical situation from week 1, you know I'm talking about the audience, the purpose, and the stance. I'm adding a new dimension to that with this paper. We're going to talk about 3 terms that come from the Greek language, and those are logos, L-O-G-O-S, which is the basic of our word logic, and that's exactly what it means. Logos means using logic, fact, reasoning in our papers, and our argumentative research paper is going to be really heavy on logos. The second is ethos, E-T-H-O-S, and ethos is related to our word ethics. And what it means in terms of our papers is that we have credibility. We're going to rely on our own credibility as authors, and we are especially going to rely on the credibility of the sources, the authors of the sources that we choose to help us in our paper. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The third is pathos, P-A-T-H-O-S, which is related to our word pathetic, but in this case, it simply means emotion. And we are not going to be using pathos at all in this essay, in the argumentative research. Other professors may want you to use all three in your writing. For this paper, I want you to stick with logos, logic, and ethos, credibility. So when you're thinking about developing your thesis for your research paper, you want to make sure that you're presenting it as a statement that you could argue and support using, in part, the sources that you choose. Excuse me. Lost my train of thought. So then after you've thought about your thesis, you want to be focusing on choosing sources that are going to help you build that argument, to show your readers that you have valid points, to show your readers that you are being logical in the sources that you've chosen, and also logical in the way you're discussing your topic. Now, if you've looked at the assignment for the research paper, you'll notice that all of the topics are related to the Born a Crime book. And because it's related to Born a Crime, you're going to be using that book, Trevor Noah's book, as one of your sources. It does not have to be a big source. You only need to refer to it once in the whole course of your essay, and that's acceptable. In addition to that, you are going to need 2 what are called peer review or juried or scholarly articles, which you will find through the library databases. And I've given you a link to the library English 1301 page on eCampus, so you can take a look at that. The library databases are collections of works that could range from newspapers through very serious, professionally done research. We are going to focus on the super serious, professionally done research for this assignment. That's what academic research is. That's what an argumentative research paper is. It relies on sources that are done by content experts, by people who are experts in the field, for students and other experts in the field. So when you are looking for sources for your essay, you will need 2 articles. You will need 1 book in addition to Born a Crime, so you'll end up with 2 books, and an ebook is fine for this book. And then you've got another source you can have. An optional source could be a documentary. It could be a website if I approve it. And I will tell you right now that I will not approve any .com sites. And I will not approve most .org, meaning no Wikipedia, no Google, no Schmoop, no Cliff Notes, nothing that would be considered a reference text or a reference website is acceptable for this assignment. I really want you to focus on the serious stuff. You need a chapter out of a book. You don't need to read the whole book, but you need to refer to a material from a book chapter. And we're going to be using the library databases before we start writing our research paper. We're going to be using them to create what's called a working bibliography. And the working bibliography is your group project. I've got the full project description on eCampus, both for the paper, the research paper, and for the working bibliography. The descriptions are on the week 3 eCampus page. What a working bibliography does is it allows you, well, it kind of forces you actually, to find sources that you think are going to be useful for your research project. So it's a way for you to start locating sources and evaluating them right away. So when you're evaluating them, and here you may want to take some notes, there are some things that I want you to keep in mind. The sources you locate must be no older than 2010. So pay very close attention to the date on the sources you're looking at. Anything older than that is going to be outdated and not considered the most recent information, and so it's really not going to help improve your research paper. If you're working on something that is a field that changes very quickly, say you're going to do something related to medicine in South Africa or technology in South Africa, then you're going to need to look at sources no older than 2014. So 5 years or newer for a fast-moving field. So the date is one thing. The second thing you want to look at is the author or authors, plural, of your source. If you are choosing, when you search in the library, if you search academic or scholarly articles, you will be pretty sure that your authors are going to meet the requirement of being content experts. And this is really why I don't want you to be using sources like Wikipedia or Google, because there's no guarantee that the people who put them together are experts or that the information is accurate. So you really want to make sure that you are using information only from content experts. And you know someone's a content expert if they work for a university, if they have a PhD or a doctorate, if they have a graduate degree like an MA, Masters of Science, or Master of Arts, or MS, Master of Science. Those are generally considered experts as well. So if you use information done by content experts, you can be sure that the information is valid, and you don't have to worry about hunting down their qualifications to figure out if they have the correct ethos for your paper. If you're using information from content experts, then you know that part is done for you. You also want to make sure that the publisher of your source is one that is trusted. Again, university presses are good. Scholarly journal articles, if it's got the title journal in the title of the magazine it comes from, then you're probably safe there. You want to make sure that there's no bias. And by bias, I mean prejudice. And this is why I don't want you to use .com or the vast majority of .org sites. Because as we know, all .com sites are there to sell us something, whether it's a point of view, whether it's a product, whether it's a lifestyle, whatever it is, .com, their entire purpose is to sell us something. And so their information is almost never neutral. It's always going to be presented in a way to try to convince you to believe what they're saying. And many .org sites are the same. Not all of them, but enough that I want you to be really careful in using them. Please send me a link to a .org site that you would like to use as one of your sources, and I will check it out for you. The other thing you want to make sure when you're looking at your sources is how soon you can get it, because the entire paper is due in 2 weeks, right? It's due July 3rd, and it's going to be really important that you're able to locate your sources well in advance, in enough time to be able to read them and understand them and use them in your research paper. So be sure to make sure that they're available. Thankfully, when you're looking in the library databases, one thing you can do is check, depending on the database you're in, you can check for something that is a scholarly or peer-reviewed text, and that will take away all the guesswork for that. And you can check PDF or full text available. I highly recommend downloading PDF files of your sources whenever possible, because you will need to turn those in to turn it in, or actually you'll probably email them to me once your paper is done. So keep copies of everything that you're doing for your sources, or everything you're doing with the sources you decide to use. So there's more about that in the notes I posted on eCampus, and there's also a lot about that in the chapters 45 through 52 in the Norton Field Guide. So let's go back to that idea of a working bibliography and a group project. So for your working bibliography, I'm going to put you in groups based on the topic that you choose for your research paper, and the topics are on eCampus, along with inside the research paper description. What you are going to do is you are going to use the library resources, and I really only want you to use the Northlake or another college or university library for this. Local libraries tend not to have the kind of sources that are appropriate to an academic research paper, to be honest. So you're going to find some sources and you're going to send them to your group leader. And then the group leader is going to put them into one document and upload that document to turn it in. You do not need to have read your sources before you send the citations to the person who's volunteered to be group leader. And so please read very carefully the description for the working bibliography to see what the responsibilities are for group leader. Because the person who volunteers to be group leader can earn some extra credit points because it is more work for that person. So what you're going to do is you are going to locate sources using the library databases. When you click on the North Lake Library page, click on Databases A to Z. The very first link in that group of databases is a very good all-purpose database. So it's going to be able to help you find those articles in particular. When you go in there, you will see that you have a lot of options. You can limit it by date. You can check full text. You can check academic or scholarly or peer-reviewed. Use those tools in the search, in the database search area, to limit your search in such a way that the results are going to come back with only the kind that are going to be useful for this project. That's probably the biggest advice I can give you. If you're looking for books, you can use the general library catalog, not the article databases. There's two different places to look. Documentaries are in a database called Canopy with a K, which is on the same page as the list of databases where you can find your articles. So if you want to look for a documentary, that's an acceptable source as well, but only one is acceptable. And then you are going to alphabetize the sources that you find, and please do use the citation tools in the library databases if they are available to help you format the way the entries are supposed to look. There's a specific format for each type of source. So a book is going to look different from an academic article, is going to look different from a website, is going to look different from a documentary. And that's where chapter 52 in the Norton Field Guide is going to be really helpful because it gives you the information on how to format almost any kind of source that you would need for this project. So I recommend, in addition to having the citation tools from the Norton Field Guide available, that you're using the ones in the library database if they are available to you. Not every database does have citation tools. If you're going to use the library ones, make sure you choose the format MLA version 8. There's a lot of different kinds of citation styles. None of them are really better or worse than any others, but the way the information is presented depends on the needs of each subject. And English uses MLA, which is how you format your essays, the double spacing, the indented paragraphs, all the rest that's on page 540 of the Norton Field Guide. That's an example of how a paper is presented in MLA. And then at the end of that essay, at the end of chapter 52, you'll see a works cited page, which is how you want your annotated bibliography and your works cited to look. We'll talk more about a works cited next week. But for right now, I want you to focus on locating your sources, reading those sources, and starting to plan for your research paper. This is getting pretty long. I am close to 19 minutes, and I don't want to go more than 20. So what I'll say for now is please take a look at all the resources on eCampus under week 3. I do not have posted yet, but I will be posting this afternoon a sample working bibliography so that everyone can see what it looks like once it's all finished. And again, you can use that as your model, but I do not want anyone to be using any of the information I present as part of your working bibliography or part of your research paper. I'm going to do a topic that's not related to anything you're going to be doing for your annotated or working bibliographies in your research papers. So thanks for your attention for this whole longish video. I am, of course, always happy to give you feedback about your writing, give you feedback about your topics, your research as you go through it. Please, please, please ask. I'm more than happy to help in any way I can. And that's about it for now. keep up the good work. I'm really happy with your ability to keep up with the pace of the class. You guys are doing awesome with that. So don't give up, keep going, and we'll get there. Have a good week. Bye.